everybody? Welcome back into Fantasy Daily. It is same as always, same night that I was just, if you just watched episode 4, if you just heard episode 4, it is still Thursday. Like I said in episode 4, if you haven't seen episode 4 actually, go back, watch episode 4. Don't skip ahead. This is like a show that you need to watch in a row, like Prison Break. I'm probably aging myself a little bit by saying Prison Break there, but you gotta watch it in a row. You gotta watch all of them. Can't skip ahead. But anyway, welcome to Fantasy Daily episode 5. Like I said in episode 4, I wanted to make another episode for you guys. In episode 4, we covered all the free agency stuff that happened. Basically gave you a big news sheet of everything to catch you up with what happened. But we didn't get a chance to talk about all the implications that came off of that. And that's what this episode is going to be. So we're really just going to dive right back into where we were on episode 4, and I'm going to go back basically through the same exact list that I went through. On there, I kind of did touch upon some of them as I was going. I can't help it. It's like word vomit. As soon as I hear a player's name, I want to talk about what's going on and the fantasy implications that come from it. So going right back to that list, everybody, we're going to talk about Seattle straight off of the top, and now Russell Wilson staying. It's obviously a good thing for Seattle. It's a very good thing for Seattle. Anybody who has Russell Wilson in Dynasty can breathe a sigh of relief, because to be honest, if Russell Wilson did move on to a place like Chicago or one of the other teams, I don't think it'll be as good for Russell Wilson as he is in Seattle. Now, don't get me wrong, Russell Wilson's a machine. You know, he gets everything done with his legs, and if the team lets him cook like everybody wants him to do, then he's going to be, unstoppable. But at the same time, I don't think he carries the same exact fantasy value. I think Seattle is his best case scenario because he already has that chemistry with everybody. He's already so good at playing with those people, and that team is really stacked on offense for what he needs as far as weapons go. The offense line is just terrible. So if they really gave a lot of effort to offensive line, that's the best situation for Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson staying, I believe, is a good thing for fantasy. If you were somebody who has Russell Wilson and wanted him to get traded in order to see what was happening, it's fun to think that sometimes that like, okay, I want to see what happens if Russ goes to, Chicago and he gets Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's great, but it's not as good as having, and it would have been great for Darnell Mooney, but it's not as good as having the chemistry that you already have with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson's the back over there. They have a lot of good pieces over there. It's just the offensive line that is terrible, so I feel like Russ staying there is a good thing for fantasy. Seeing him in Chicago would have been fun, I'm not going to lie, but at the same time, I still want my fantasy value for a player that I know I can keep and roll him out as a quarterback one, and that's Russell Wilson in Seattle. They also got Chris Carson back, so if you were somebody, I said this on episode 4, if you're somebody who has Chris Carson in Dynasty, you can breathe a sigh of relief because Chris Carson is definitely your running back 1 going forward. Running back 2, if he's running back 2, that's great. But Chris Carson is a big name to have on your team. Be excited to have him still. It's nice to know that when you can roll out a running back 1, you're going to get kind of the same exact situation with Chris Carson. I do expect them to use a little bit more of a committee back this year, like they've always wanted to do. They want to be really a run, oriented team. But I think Chris Carson, no matter what, is going to get those 25 to 30 carries games where he absolutely blows everybody else out of the water that week. So Chris Carson's one of those guys you can be excited for. They picked up Gerald Everett. I said loosely on the last episode that I do believe that Gerald Everett could rise to a tight end 1, and I am pretty confident in that because I think Gerald Everett might be the best. He might be the best incoming tight end. I'm trying to go back through the tight ends that he's gotten before because I know they keep trying this where they try to get him a tight end that he can use. But I feel like Gerald Everett really is the best prospect for Russell Wilson thus far. And I think he's a good addition to having a good complement and a good addition for the team when you have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I'm excited to see what Gerald Everett does over there. And he is definitely some guy that I'm going to be looking at when it comes to draft season and dynasty drafts to see if he's on the wire in some dynasty startup drafts. I'm in a keeper league where we drop everything but the starting roster, so I'm hoping that Gerald Everett might slip into there and I can pick him up late and see what happens because he could be a good starting tight end, later on in the year with Russell Wilson. So New England gets Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. I'm going to couple these guys together because being that they are now together, they are both inherently useless. Absolutely useless for fantasy football. And it makes me very upset because, like I said this year, there's not many good things that are going to come out of this. This episode is going to be mostly talking about how frustrated I am with where people went and how it rained on my parade of watching fantasy through the offseason, because I love free agency. I love seeing where the pieces get moved. Like I said before, it's like watching NFL teams play fantasy football. They get to plug and play their players and go get some free agents and, try to fix what parts of their team they can get in order to get to the championship. So with this year, everybody went to places that I feel are hurting them, basically. There's literally, on one hand, I think, I'm gonna keep a counter. Here's 1 and 2. Chris Carson and Russell Wilson thus far, I think, are the only... Well, Russell Wilson wasn't even a free agent thing, so it's really only Chris Carson so far. So Chris Carson's the only one so far. We're going to give him a mark. There's one good thing that's happened so far, is Chris Carson staying there. Besides that, everybody else is kind of hurting me. I don't like these free agent signings. I'm not going to give Gerald Everett a point because I don't know what that means. That could be useless. We don't know that yet. So Chris Carson right now is the only good thing that happened. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry was supposed to be one of the biggest guys. Hunter Henry was supposed to be the guy who ends up on a team that just absolutely gives you bonkers fantasy points for Hunter Henry, because that's the kind of player he can be. But instead he goes to New England, where you're going to see him block and you're going to rip your hair out. So leading into that with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, if you have either one of these people in a dynasty, trade them. Trade them right now while they have any sort of name that anybody will buy. If you have Hunter Henry... if you can get Justin Jefferson or Hunter Henry, I would do it in a heartbeat. Give me Justin Jefferson. That's the first name to pop to mind. If you can get, I don't know, if you can get T. Higgins in a draft pick for Hunter Henry, do it. Running backs, Hunter Henry running backs. If you can get David Montgomery, if you can get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's so disappointing to watch Hunter Henry fall into like the worst possible situation. Even if you think he can be a good addition for Cam Newton, he might be a good addition for the games where he catches a pass and takes it 20 yards to the house, or, I just don't see a reality where the current Cam Newton or anybody they bring in will be a tight end like Gronk going into New England's offense. So if I had Hunter Henry, I have Jonnu Smith, I'm trading them away immediately, but I'm trying to sell on name. If I have Hunter Henry, to be honest, if I can't get what I want for him, if I can't get something that I still feel is going to help my team right away win a championship, I'm probably not going to trade him. What I'm trying to do is cash in on the name to see if I can get somebody close to that tight end 2, tight end 1 value. If you're trying to go lateral with tight ends, it's probably not going to happen. So moving Hunter Henry right now, especially if somebody's, hip to the idea that him moving to New England's a bad thing, you're probably going to have to sell low on him. But yeah, I'm out on Hunter Henry now. I'm out on Jonnu Smith for fantasy. I don't want either one of them. So if I can trade them, I'm looking to trade them immediately. Nelson Agholor, Kendrick Bourne. I think out of fantasy relevance, Kendrick Bourne might fit the new Julian Edelman role, to the point where I think Kendrick Bourne might be a surprising fantasy option later on in the year. New England usually has the stigma of you don't want to add any of their wide receivers. Even when Tom Brady was there, it was hit or miss with whoever you had besides Julian Edelman, and even Julian Edelman sometimes would give you, wide receiver 3 weeks, and then he would fall off for a couple weeks, and then he'd give you a wide receiver 1, 2, and then he'd do it again. So, I think Kendrick Bourne has that potential to fill that role that they need, with Nelson Agholor kind of being a, 30, 40 catches a year guy. Whereas I think Kendrick Bourne can get close to the 70, 80 range and make, probably his hay in the red zone catching those short passes. But I do think Kendrick Bourne is like the Damiere Byrd ad for Cam Newton, where it's like, this is going to be the guy that he's probably looking at. So that's my prediction for Kendrick Bourne and the Patriots. Actually, I feel like Kendrick Bourne currently is the only person on the Patriots that I would even closely want to look at, and that's in deep leagues where you have a million bench spots, or nobody values him at all, and you're looking for a really far out there lottery ticket. I think Kendrick Bourne's the only one that I put any eggs in at all in New England. James White re-signed there too. We talked about that, and I feel like that backfield is going to be kind of rocky. With Rex Burkhead still not being signed, they might re-sign him, so it's probably going to be a similar backfield that you saw last year, but notoriously New England, you don't want their backfield, so don't touch that either. Houston, with Deshaun Watson being probably done, Tyrod and Ryan Finley are there. I don't really care for the wide receivers there regardless. So whatever happens there with wide receivers, you're probably going to have to hold on to Brandon Cooks and then wait and see. But besides that, I don't really want anything from there. If you still have Brandon Cooks, I would definitely, I guess, try to trade him, but he really doesn't have any value. But I definitely don't want him coming into the season. I don't want any wide receivers from Houston. That's a wait and see game for me. Last time on the last show, on episode 4, I kind of pushed Houston's face in the dirt a little bit and said that they were absolutely awful. And I mean, it's true, they are pretty bad, but looking at this backfield's kind of impressive. And I do believe that it's going to go David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, Mark Ingram. But this is a really fun backfield, actually. And David Johnson and Phillip Lindsay could be a lot of fun in that backfield, where if this team doesn't have the wide receivers and they're not getting passing game going the way they want, you could see David Johnson and Phillip Lindsay still hold value. So as much as when it first happened, I didn't care for them killing David Johnson's value. I was like, this might actually work out depending on how the team does passing and depending on how the team runs the ball. So if David Johnson can kind of hold the role that he had last year and Phillip Lindsay can get somewhere close to that, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. And Phillip Lindsay might be one of those guys who I actually end up drafting later on in deeper league drafts, or in a dynasty draft where he goes undrafted and nobody really wants to touch him. I'd grab him just to see what happens, because I think that there is a chance that Houston's so bad that they just run the ball all year, and Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson are still wildly talented. So if they're getting the ball, 40 times a game between them, I'm running with that all day. I want all parts of that. They also grabbed Randall Cobb, Dante Moncrief, Ryan Izzo, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, I'm not interested in any Houston wide receivers regardless because of the whole Deshaun Watson thing. If he plays this year, which I really don't think it's going to happen, then we'll re-talk about that whole Houston thing. Chicago, they got Allen Robinson there. That's a good thing. I hope Nick Foles is going to be the quarterback. Andy Dalton was apparently just announced on the Chicago Bears website or their Facebook or Twitter or whatever it was. They posted a picture of Andy Dalton in a Chicago uniform and said QB1. I really hope not, man. I really hope not, Chicago. Like, Nick Foles kind of he doesn't have, the best track record with you guys, but you guys were back and forth last year with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles, and I think you just give Nick Foles a chance. Let him start the first 3 weeks. Don't let Andy Dalton come off the streets and do that. That's some stuff that you do in the mid-season when the guy's not getting it done. But I say give it to him. Let him see what they can do with Allen Robinson. I prefer Nick Foles with Allen Robinson because I know what to expect. I don't know what to expect with Andy Dalton, and I don't expect much with Allen Robinson and Andy Dalton. So I want my fantasy value. My fantasy value, I feel, is better for Allen Robinson with Nick Foles on the field than I feel with Nick Foles on the field. It's better for David Montgomery. It's better than for Darnell Mooney. So we'll see what happens with Andy Dalton. We'll see if he's the starter. But personally, my gut reaction to that is I'd rather have Nick Foles, But I don't run teams. I just play fantasy football. Yeah, they got Damian Williams. I don't think that's much. I think Damian Williams is just a compliment piece for David Montgomery. David Montgomery's still a dog. I like David Montgomery. I really hope Chicago can move the ball this year because I feel like that was a big part of their problem last year is they couldn't move the ball, so they didn't have a chance to use David Montgomery. But in the games that they did move the ball pretty well, David Montgomery was very, he was a good piece, and he was a good piece all last year. I remember halfway through the season, I was talking to a couple people, and I told them, if you're running back needy, go out and trade for David Montgomery. He doesn't look like much. Nobody's really talking about him, but he hasn't really given you any bad games. He's given you, in full PPR games, he's given you 13 points. And, while you're looking at that going, oh, that's nothing, that's something you scroll right past, that's somebody that's not killing your team. He's not giving you down weeks to the point where you're losing weeks because of him. He's giving you a baseline that you can really build off of and feel confident that he's not going to give me 6 points and hurt my feelings and let my friend laugh at me for the next week. So with Damian Williams being there, I don't think that's much for him. I want Nick Foles to start. I want the offense to move. That's really all I want because the more the offense moves, it's good for Allen Robinson. It's good for David Montgomery. It's good for fantasy points. We're on the way to championships. Kenny Golladay going to the Giants, I feel, is a downgrade. Now, don't get me wrong. Big deal. He got $72 million. He's got big money coming to him, and I feel he deserves every piece of it. But as far as fantasy goes, I don't know if I trust Daniel Jones to completely go away from what he has with Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. So with Kenny Golladay moving there, I know he's going to be the one. obviously he's going to be the one. But is he going to get the same, crazy amount of targets and usage that he got when he was the golden boy in Detroit with Matt Stafford? Because now you don't have Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford is a beast. So if Kenny Golladay goes there and Daniel Jones, being the quarterback he is, clings to what he knows out of safety, this might be ugly for Kenny Golladay. Now, I'm not trading him. I'm not moving away from him. I'm not doing anything like that. But at the same time, I am a little bit worried for his value now compared to what his value could be with Daniel Jones. Now, Giants could be a sleeper team. They could be a team who surprise a lot. But from what I've seen with Daniel Jones and from what I see in the Giants offense with the talent they have with Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, it's a big list. Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, that's a big list. And with that list, I'm not sure that Kenny Golladay is going to get the amount of work you want when you're hoping for a wide receiver one in Kenny Golladay, which is what he is a wide receiver one. So you're going to have to pay wide receiver one price. You'd have to trade for wide receiver one price. He's currently valued at wide receiver one price, but you can't sell him because he's Kenny Golladay. So that's a sticky situation. You obviously have to wait and see. But I'm not highly optimistic about this one. I thought, I would have preferred he go somewhere else where he could be the definite guy, and then we know he's going to feast on everybody. The Giants also got John Ross, so they want a speed guy. I guess that's just a backup anyway, but he's a speed guy. He's going to be worked into there. They got Kyle Rudolph. I feel like that's more of an offensive line signing piece. They also got Devontae Booker. That's just a compliment to Saquon Barkley. Pittsburgh, Juju stays. Ben signed. Nothing really. It's going to be the same team that you saw last year. That's it. That's really what I feel with Pittsburgh. It's going to be the same team. They look good. They're not going to be the same team as far as clean sweep like they did, but they're going to be a good offense, weak defense. Sometimes they get talked about, other times they look awful. Pittsburgh's going to be that up and down roller coaster again this year. I'm going to save this one for last because it's the thumbnail of the show. If you guys are watching on YouTube or if you guys saw the thumbnail on Anchor, I'm saving that one for last because it's the worst thing that's ever, it's probably one of the most heartbreaking things that's ever happened to me and fantasy, and it's one of the worst things to happen in the first year of me trying to start a fantasy football analytics and prediction show. So we'll get into that one in a little bit. So Indy, Carson Wentz is the QB now, which I think is a good thing for Indy. I think Carson Wentz actually has a little bit of dog left in him, and as much as people might say that Carson Wentz's best days are behind him, they might not be, because Indy is a really good team, and Indy is a team who doesn't need to force things like Philadelphia has always had to force things. Now, Philadelphia has good success with forcing things. Obviously, they got a Super Bowl out of trying to do, crazy stuff that nobody else has ever done. That team was collapsing. A lot of stuff has happened. Carson Wentz couldn't be at his best. Whatever, injuries, blah, 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 blah. But there's a chance that Carson Wentz is over that hump and hungry to show the Eagles, you did wrong. I am still that guy who, brought us to the playoffs that year and had a Cinderella season with you guys before Nick Foles won the playoffs that I helped you guys get to. So I feel like Carson Wentz still got some dog in him. What happened in, Philadelphia wasn't great. It definitely made him a little bit angry. So I hope he carries that fire with him because he's got an offensive line that's crazy. He's got crazy, crazy weapons. So I think this is good for Carson Wentz. We're actually going to give a point here. So that's 2 points so far of good things that have happened. 2 things. That's it. So 2 points. T.Y. Hilton re-signed with them. That broke my heart. Not only because I wanted to see T.Y. Hilton go somewhere else to play somewhere before his career is over, but because Michael Pittman was going to be one of my golden wide receivers as soon as Carson Wentz went there and I knew T.Y. Hilton, or I felt T.Y. Hilton wasn't going to re-sign. I was ready to make Michael Pittman one of my guys this year, saying he's going to win you titles because he's going to get lit up with targets from Carson Wentz. Now that T.Y. Hilton's there, I still feel he's going to get a crazy amount of targets, but at the same time, T.Y. Hilton is still going to get his share because he's T.Y. Hilton. He's on the field a lot, and he's a good wide receiver. So with him, staying, it hurts Michael Pittman. It made me very upset towards my Michael Pittman predictions and all of his stock. He might still make the Golden Boys, whatever, the Golden roster and all that stuff. Maybe he'll be on the bench of that team. But I'm very upset for Michael Pittman's total overall value, because I thought he had a chance to become a wide receiver one in fantasy this year, and nobody would have been drafting him as wide receiver one. They would have been drafting him in the 10th, 11th round of redraft leagues. So he would have been going way late, and I think he would have returned you some crazy value with Carson Wentz. And that's really these situations where in the offseason you want to pay attention to, because if you buy into something early and then you follow it throughout the year and you hear updates, that's when you really can start to build that hype and go, okay, there is something there that I can take the gamble on, and even if I have to pay up for it, I'm paying for something that's more than a lottery ticket. It's got some evidence to it, and it could blow up to the point where I'm completely dominating my league because I got somebody that's way better than everybody else. So Carson Wentz is there, T.Y. Hilton's there. They've re-signed Marlon Mack, which is, it's good for the team. It's a little bit bad for Jonathan Taylor, but I really don't move Jonathan Taylor anywhere, because I feel like those times where you saw Nyheim Hines last year, that's going to be the games where you saw Marlon Mack, because everybody looks at it as really the three-headed beast in Indy, but it was always kind of a two-headed beast rotation where they would move people out, and Jonathan Taylor was the staple of that. So like, they would constantly move, okay, I'm going to move Mack here. Obviously, Mack didn't last long, but Mack here, Nyheim Hines, blah, 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 or Mack didn't even, I think, make the season, whatever it may be. But even with the backups, running backs that they had, I can't remember the third string's name back there, they were constantly moving pieces with Jonathan Taylor as the staple. So I don't think you can change, or you don't look at Jonathan Taylor's value any different because of this Marlon Mack signing. But at the same time, he is still going to kind of share carries like he did last year. So you can kind of look at Jonathan Taylor about the same. Mo Ali Cox is back with Indy, which is good because I want Carson Wentz to use him because he is crazy good. The Jets get Corey Davis and Tyler Kroft. I don't think that means much. The Titans get Josh Reynolds, which I think is big for Josh Reynolds. He could be another guy that, not many people look at, but he could be huge for the team because they got rid of Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis. And with them losing all those targets, those targets have to go somewhere. Josh Reynolds is a good wide receiver. So I think with both of those people leaving, Josh Reynolds being there is good for the team. And with Jonnu Smith leaving, last year you saw Anthony Fursker in there a lot. I think I pronounced that right, Fursker. You saw him in there a lot. And now that Jonnu Smith is gone, he looks to be the guy going forward. If he's the guy going forward, he might be a tight end one going into this year, because I do think he's a better tight end than Jonnu Smith as far as running routes and catching passes. So I would like to see him, come in a lot. I would like to see a lot of Anthony Fursker, to be honest. And you guys are going to hear me talk about him a lot in the offseason. Tampa Bay, not much with them. Fitzpatrick goes to Washington along with Curtis Samuel. I think that's big for Curtis Samuel. I think that's big for Terry McLaurin. I'm really buying into Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel this offseason. So if you have them, I'd be excited for that. So actually there's 2 points there. Boom. So we're up to 4 good things that happened this offseason. Buffalo gets Mitch Trubisky. That means nothing for Josh Allen. Emmanuel Sanders and Jacob Hollister go there. I don't think that means much for either one of those people. I'm still off of them. Miami gets Will Fuller, Malcolm Brown, and Jacoby Brissett. I don't think it means much for Malcolm Brown and Jacoby Brissett. They're going to run a kind of running back by committee until the end of the year, and then they'll cut some people in, whoever it'll be. I think it's still going to be Myles Gaskins and Malcolm Brown. We'll see. Will Fuller goes there. I do think that is good for Will Fuller owners who owned him, who have him in Dynasty, and I think it's actually a good play to go towards the end of the year. End of the drafts, if you're looking for somebody who could have really high upside that's not getting drafted a lot, I think Will Fuller could be that 7th, 8th round guy who could get you some good wins. Philly's got Joe Flacco, whatever. Really, Alshon Jeffrey, Boston Scott's re-signed there, so Philly, not much news there. The Jags get Marvin Jones, and with Trevor Lawrence coming to town, Marvin Jones needs to be looked at. If you can go out and trade for Marvin Jones right now and get him on a lower tier, like trade for a wide receiver 3, absolutely go out there and do it. If you can trade Hunter Henry for Marvin Jones, absolutely I would trade Hunter Henry for Marvin Jones right now, because Marvin Jones is going to feast with Trevor Lawrence. Arizona's got AJ Green, JJ Watt, whatever. They're good. AJ Green's not somebody to grab. Don't go grab AJ Green. It's still DeAndre Hopkins and I think Christian Kirk. Don't grab that. Green Bay gets Aaron Jones. That's good for the Aaron Jones people. Aaron Jones, you can look at him the same exact way you did last year. Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis both re-signed with Green Bay, as well as Devin Funchess and Al Lazard, so you can expect the same offense over there. Hopefully they'll grab some more pieces. I'm excited for that. The Saints, not much happened there. Just Jameis is going to be the starter now. So I think if you're somebody who has Michael Thomas, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with Michael Thomas. or with his draft value, or his trade value. But I would definitely be looking to move away from Michael Thomas. If you can get somebody who's still considered a wide receiver 1 for Michael Thomas, I definitely would. If you can package him and somebody else to go get somebody like Stephon Diggs, I definitely would do that as well. So I would definitely be shopping him before the season to see if you think that somebody will think that Jameis is going to pepper him with targets, or if he's going to have some upside with Jameis like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin did. But I'm not willing to take that chance with my team. I want my wins right now, so I would definitely be looking to move away from Michael Thomas because I don't trust him with Jameis at all. I don't want any part of the Saints right now. So if I have him, I'm definitely looking to see where I can pivot. Detroit gets Tyrell Williams, and that's really the only person I'm kind of looking at. He's a deep guy later on in drafts if you want to grab him. Rams get Stafford. It kind of bumps up Stafford's value in my eyes. I do like that Stafford ended up there. I think it helps Cooper Kupp's value. I think it helps Robert Woods' value. And I also think it helps the tight end's value. I'm drawing a blank. It's not Gerald Everett. That's who's stuck in my head. Oh, it's going to bug me now. I can't remember the name. I can't remember the tight end's name for the Rams. Anyway, that guy, he's going to be good, or he's going to be somebody that I'm looking for in these drafts going into the year. Oh, it's Jared Cook. Jared Cook signed with the Rams. That's who it was. I can't believe I left that out of here. I am looking at Jared Cook with Stafford being the quarterback there now. So if you can go out and get a Jared Cook and somebody else, if whoever's got Jared Cook, if you got Michael Thomas, see if you can get Jared. If you need a tight end, see if you can get Jared Cook and a wide receiver in return. I think that's a good return on your investment for Michael Thomas because he's not going to give you. Did I just pick my nose on camera? I did. I'm keeping it too. So I think you can, kind of rip the Band-Aid with Michael Thomas, see what you can get. If you can get a 2-for-1 deal and you're needy at tight end like most teams are, I would definitely do that. KC gets Darrell Williams, Joe Thuney. It's good for everything. You Joe Thuney, blah, 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 whatever. Offensive line. Kansas City. Do the same thing that you did with Kansas City last year. The 4 players that are valuable, keep those. Dak re-signs with them, so that's really good for CeeDee Lamb. That's really good for Amari Cooper. That's really good for Zeke. So you can kind of raise your values back up on all those guys. Dak Prescott's still good. So if you have somebody who was low on Dak Prescott, or if you bought Dak Prescott in the offseason, that's awesome. Good for you. Because Dak's back, and that's a good thing for anything Dallas Cowboys because Dak does belong there. So I just wish they gave him his money. That's a sad story. That's another one of those sad stories in NFL where you're like, come on, NFL, be better. Be better, man. And now we move on to the most heartbreaking piece of news. I wish I had some violin music that I could put into here, post-production, but I'm not doing the post-production tonight. I can't stress enough how upset I am, guys. I told you in a couple episodes how much I love Josh Jacobs and how high I am on him. I'm getting broken up right now. I can't take it. I can't take it anymore. I just can't take it. The Raiders went out and signed Kenyon Drake. Now, they also signed John Brown and Zay Jones and blah, 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 whatever, wide receivers, and the Raiders aren't really my thing. Henry Ruggs. Didn't I just say Henry? Oh, no, I said CeeDee Lamb. Henry Ruggs is, probably the only guy in the Raiders that I want to look at all for wide receivers. But that is the exact reason why I was so ecstatic for Josh Jacobs this year, because the Raiders have a good team. And it was the same exact situation for the Derrick Henry thing, where I said a couple years ago, DeMarco Murray's in the way of Derrick Henry. DeMarco Murray needs to go because Derrick Henry was clearly better, and everybody saw it. But for some reason, the Titans had to go out and get DeMarco Murray and put him in front of Derrick Henry for, I think it was 2 years that we were screaming, we want Derrick Henry, and they still didn't play him. And then Derrick Henry comes out and he's a beast, and everybody's like, oh my God, look at that. Well, of course. And now the Raiders are doing the same exact thing with Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake is only there to be a compliment like Devontae Booker was, but he's so much better than Devontae Booker was. Kenyon Drake is still a running back 2 with insane upside. He's going to get games with 15 carries. He's going to get games with 20 carries, and he's going to break your heart when you're a Josh Jacobs manager. I was so high on Josh Jacobs, and now I don't know what to do. And I hate to end the show on a sad note, but that is unfortunately all the time we have. Everybody, thank you for joining me. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Josh Jacobs, I'm so sorry. I love you. Good night, everybody.